Today, I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Shawn Talbott, to talk about male hormone optimization. Dr. Shawn is a scientist and researcher who has authored 14 books, been featured all over television, and is someone that I have a great deal of respect for because he's not one of these scientists that just hides out in a lab having conversations with microorganisms. He actually takes his research and practically applies it in the real world as an elite endurance athlete who will be competing in the Ironman this fall. And the better part of his career has been spent working with Olympic caliber athletes and optimizing their performance. So please do me a favor and show Dr. Shawn some love in the comments, say hello, and tap away at that like button. Dr. Shawn, welcome.
Hey, Mike, great to be with you.
Awesome. Well, listen, so last we saw each other was at the launch of Ignite, which is the new hormone balancing supplement from Amare, which we'll talk about in a little while. But you and I had a pretty deep conversation around male hormonal health in general, and then the implications and potential usages of Ignite. So what I'd like to do for our audience today is to give some insight into that conversation that we had. Sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, excellent. So before we really dive in, I mean, can you just give a brief overview of a man's hormonal makeup? And I think men tend to think that it's all about testosterone.
Right, totally.
That's not the case, is it?
Yeah, no, not at all. And that's exactly what guys think. They're like, yeah, it's all about T, right? You know, big capital T, testosterone. And if your testosterone levels are good, then you're good. And, you know, there's nothing else to worry about. But what a lot of guys don't realize is that there's a testosterone number, like a total testosterone number. There's also probably a more important number is your free testosterone. But it's not just about testosterone. Like male bodies have dozens of other kinds of hormones, right? So it's testosterone, it's estrogen, which a lot of guys will consider to be like, you know, a woman's hormone, a female hormone. But we have plenty of of estrogen. It does good things. We've got progesterone, we've got cortisol, we've got, you know, all sorts of appetite hormones, all sorts of other metabolic hormones like insulin that controls your blood sugar, or thyroid, which controls your overall metabolism. So, you know, like a lot of guys will think about guys who don't know any better, right? And you know, I don't say that in a bad way, right? Because it can get kind of a complicated thing. A lot of guys just think like testosterone is about sex drive and it's about, you know, being a man. But what they don't understand is that testosterone plays with these other hormones, and that in a large part can determine, are you in a good mood or are you irritated all the time? Are you getting good quality sleep or are you agitated and you can't get good quality sleep? Are you gaining weight around the midsection? Do you have a 6-pack or do you have, you know, a 12-pack, which is a pot belly? You know, we joke around about that kind of stuff. But sometimes getting those hormones, first of all, in the right balance, but second of all, enabling your body to utilize them better, right? So you could have, I know we'll get into this, but you could have perfectly sort of normal hormone levels, but your body is not able to use them efficiently. And there are ways that we can improve that too. So it's partly about the hormone, it's partly about how the body uses it, but it all comes back to the balance of all of those. And it's kind of like a big biochemical dominoes game, right? Testosterone is just one of those dominoes that you need to have all lined up.
So with that said, I mean, I know that a lot of our audience, especially my male audience, right, they're over the age of 35. So kind of just give us a little insight as to what typically happens for men after the age of 35. Like, what is the impact that the hormones are having on thear health? I mean, what are we seeing? Inclining, declining, going sideways?
Yeah. So after about age 30, 35, 40, sort of in that range, guys will start to produce less testosterone, right? It's sort of the man's version of menopause, right? Sometimes we call it menopause, or sometimes we call it, you know, its actual name is called andropause, where you slowly produce less and less and less androgens, which is the sort of the category of male hormones. Women go through menopause, right? And for women, their switch from having enough estrogen to not having enough is very abrupt. It's like, you know, for a lot of women, it's like, you know, hitting a switch, right? You flip the switch off and they get all the menopausal side effects and stuff like that. Men go through the same thing, but it's more gradual. So a lot of times a guy doesn't even know they're going through it because it's such a subtle change. You know, it's the analogy is, you know, how do you boil a crab or a lobster, right? You put it in a pot of water and you turn up the heat little by little by little, and they don't jump out. because it's such a gradual process of change. So a guy might just start gaining a little bit of weight around the midsection. His energy levels start to go down a little bit. He loses a little bit of like enthusiasm for his hobbies. Your sex drive, your libido might get a little bit suppressed. So you're just not quite in the mood as much as you were when you were 20. Like all those little things, like, and a lot of guys I think will just go, well, that's just getting older, right? That's just the normal process. And all my friends are going through the same thing. So I guess it's the way it's supposed to be. And I want them to realize, no. There are plenty of ways naturally that we can keep your hormone levels balanced so that you have good energy and your body looks more like a 20-year-old instead of a 50-year-old. And you do have good energy levels and you do have good mood and resilience and things like that, right? A lot of people who do these natural therapies, they will say that they feel like their old self, right? Which, and what they're saying is they feel like their young self, right? They feel more closer to the 20-year-old side of the spectrum than the 40 or 50-year-old side of the spectrum. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. And you don't have to turn to, a testosterone patch or an injection or a gel or a cream or something like that. There's all kinds of natural ways that we can help people in that area.
That's awesome, because I want to go there in a moment. I'm going to just put a pause on talking about the therapies, because we know that HRT is gotten big in the past several years. I mean, the past probably close to 2 decades now. It's been on a gradual uprise, and we're seeing a lot of doctors prescribing these. And so I definitely want to go there. But before we go to that place, let's talk about, like, what are some of the things that a man can do immediately to attenuate maybe some of these declines in testosterone, or just the disruption in his hormones in general?
Yeah, well, people have heard these before. I'm sure they've heard them from you 1,000 times, right? We know that if people exercise versus being sedentary, we know if they eat more of a balanced diet, right? So basically getting your fruits and veggies, getting your lean proteins, getting your healthy fats instead of processed food. We know that getting good quality sleep versus being sleep deprived. These are the big things, right? Move your body, rest your body, and fuel your body, right? Those things can keep, and really good studies show this, can keep those hormones from dropping as precipitously as they would if you were not moving, or you were sleep deprived, or you were eating a processed food diet. If you're doing those bad things, your hormones drop further and faster, and you feel terrible a lot earlier in your life. If you eat well, you're able to keep them from dropping. It doesn't mean that they're boosting them. It's not like you're taking testosterone and you're eating a salad and it's boosting it to these bodybuilder sort of levels, right? All about that world, what some of the people in the bodybuilding world end up doing. But it's like, those are the things that people hear about all the time, and they don't necessarily know that a lot of the reasons we make those recommendations is because it's related to their hormones, right? So what I try to do is say to people, like, look, you've heard that 1,000 times before. You're supposed to be eating right. You're supposed to be getting 8 hours of sleep. You're supposed to be moving your body every day. And if you're not, then please get going on that. But here are some other things that you can do. And I really get up on a soapbox sometimes about this, Mike, is that I know it's easier for a lot of people just to go to their doctor and say, hey, doc, can we get that, weekly injection, or can you give me a patch, or can you give me something like that? But that, more often than not, leads to more problems. And most of the people I know who have gone that route have come back to me and said, boy, I wish I never did that, because it, like I said, Domino's game before, you start taking a big dose of testosterone and it's going to upset the apple cart in terms of all those other hormones. I would much rather have somebody take a natural approach to see if we can get you back in balance. And then if that doesn't work, there are other things we can do naturally. If that doesn't work, then you have maybe as your third choice or your first or your fourth choice to go get one of those exogenous, one of those synthetic approaches. But there's all kinds of other things you can do ahead of that.
So, okay, so let's go there. I mean, this is like the perfect segue. Wanted to talk a little bit about Ignite, right? What it is. And I think that, based on our conversation that we were having, where I saw this fitting in is as a bridge. And what I mean by that, for anybody who's listening and wanting to understand, what we mean by a bridge, well, what typically happens, especially when it comes to fitness or comes to our health, we're oftentimes looking for the simple solution, right? Everybody wants the easy answer. Everybody's always looking for the pill. But I know we had this conversation when we talked about the purple pill just several months back. Oftentimes, what these things will do is it will serve to help ignite, if you will, your body in a way that will start moving you towards doing some of those things that you just mentioned,
Yep.
getting the higher quality sleep, being more consistent with workouts. And oftentimes what we do need is like a little bit of a push, right?
Right.
We need to build some momentum. But I would always be hesitant to recommend anybody going the route of HRT, hormone replacement therapies, for the reason that you already mentioned. It's like once you're on them, you're on them.
You're stuck.
Right? I mean,
exactly.
there's no turning back. It's once you go down that road, you're on that road pretty much for good. And God forbid you go off the road for any period of time. I mean, you're going to feel the effects even more so, right? Than you just simply missing a few months of workouts or going off your nutrition plan for several months or even years for that matter, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, a lot of times those hormone replacement therapies end up causing other problems that now you have to fix those problems, right? In fact, at the Ignite launch, we were there in New York City together. I talked to somebody who said, "Look, I did go on a TRT, a testosterone replacement therapy. Younger guy, right? He wants to look buff, and he's like, yeah, my shoulders are good, my pecs are good, everything's good except my balls, right? I mean, we can have an honest conversation here, right? So now he's having trouble in the sexual performance department, and he's having trouble with testicular atrophy, right? His testicles are starting to get smaller, are starting to atrophy away because he's taking a high level of a testosterone, and now his body doesn't need to make as much of that, so his body's getting rid of that tissue, basically, and so it's like, I don't want to go too far down that road, but there are plenty of ways that we can naturally use it. I love how you said that, Mike, to use it as a bridge to say, this pill, this Ignite pill we're talking about isn't going to be the thing that replaces your exercise or replaces your good diet or anything like that. But if we can help somebody, like, it's almost chicken and egg scenario. If we can help them with their hormone balance first, it might help them with their workouts. If we can help them with their hormone balance first, it might help them with their sleep patterns or their eating patterns or something like that. And then you get this virtuous cycle of better hormone balance leads to better behaviors, which leads to better hormone balance, which leads to even better behaviors. And you just start getting better and better and better.
So, oh my gosh, I feel like there's like 40 different directions we could go in right now. And I'm trying to contain myself and like pick one and stick to it. So in a moment, I do want to then talk about what is different with regards to Ignite from that of an HRT. But before I do, I just want to address one more thing related to male hormones. So if a man has normal or elevated levels of testosterone, or if he has really, really low levels of estrogen, I mean, is there any downside to increasing his estrogen levels to normal levels, meaning getting some of these things into what would be considered normal balance? Because like you alluded to earlier, I think a lot of times for men, we think, hey, more testosterone is better, and, push. And so I'm just more out of my own curiosity, what is there a downside to estrogen being too low, or what would be considered normal levels, or testosterone being too high?
Yeah, one of the things that we find is when you concentrate too much on one set of hormones and you say, all right, I want to get my testosterone as high as possible, or my estrogen as low as possible, or my cortisol as low as possible, or insulin is very popular within bodybuilding communities because it really is it sort of is an anabolic hormone in certain ways, right? So people are like, maybe more insulin is better. And, once you start getting into that mentality of more is better or less is better versus a dynamic balance, you end up getting into problems because of what we sort of started with. These hormones are in concert with each other. You have to think of the endocrine system as a system, and you have to think of the whole systemic approach, that sometimes you want higher testosterone, sometimes you want lower. Sometimes you want higher cortisol, sometimes you want lower. Same with estrogen, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. And so part of what we're doing with these natural therapies is changing the absolute level But another thing that we're doing is changing the relative level, meaning how is your testosterone high in relation to what your cortisol is doing or in relation to what your estrogen is doing? And then there's a circadian aspect to it too, meaning when is it high and when is it low? And so you can't do that with a patch or an injection. You really have to get into the body and work at the receptor site so that you're sort of improving efficiency of the system, if you will. So your body is able to, on demand, give you high when you need high and low when you need low. And that's where people are going to start to see these benefits, right? You might get someone who's doing the same exact sort of a workout regimen, but now what they feel is, hey, I feel like I'm getting more out of, like, I'm getting more benefits from the work I'm putting in than I was getting before. That's a very, very common thing, that like once you get those hormones back into balance, they gain more traction from their program.
So in general, though, then what we're really trying to do is get men into the proper ratios,
right,
of all of these hormones, right? Like,
right,
and,
right.
and
That's
I
a
think,
great way to say it.
because I think at the end of the day, I mean, the term hormonal balance gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But nobody really knows what it is. They go, something's off here. And if this is low, then I must push this higher, but not realizing that, like you elaborated on before, if you push that higher, there's a counter to that.
Right, exactly.
For every action, there's a reaction. And yes, you may need your testosterone levels to come up, but that also means that you need your estrogen and progesterone levels to also maybe come up or down to appreciable levels. Right.
Yeah.
So it all stays in balance.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing that makes it really difficult is, especially for people who are very knowledgeable in the area, is you'll get a lot of people who know their numbers, right? They do blood tests, or they do saliva tests, or you get a lot of people now that are wearing the continuous glucose monitors and, looking at that kind of stuff on a minute by minute basis. And it gets really frustrating for them because even if you're taking multiple measurements over time, those are still just snapshots, right? It's like when we measure cortisol in the laboratory, we might measure 6 times in a day in a 24-hour period. People are spitting in tubes all day long, but still, that's just a very rough approximation of the microsecond by microsecond variations between these hormones that are happening throughout the whole day. So it's not so much about like, here's the perfect number of testosterone, or here's the perfect number of cortisol or estrogen or whatever for a target. It's going to be a little bit unique to your body. It's going to be a little bit unique to whatever phase of your training you're in. And it's the thing that I go back to say is like, you'll know it when you see it, right? You'll be able to feel and reap the effects of, am I in balance? Am I not in balance? And we can adjust it based on how you feel and how you perform, sometimes even more specifically than, looking at actual, blood values or saliva or urine or something like that.
So I'm glad you said that. What I wanted to ask you then next is, for a man, what would be some of those specifics that he may now notice? Oh, wow, there must be some type of positive change because I'm experiencing blank.
Yeah, so it can be a lot of things, right? It can be your overall mood. Are you feeling stressed out? Are you feeling a little bit down in the day, like either energy or mood? Are you having trouble relaxing at night? Irritability and tension. It can be mental focus. Like, a lot of guys will say that they have brain fog until they normalize their hormones, and then the brain fog lifts, and they'll go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know I had brain fog back there." It can be like, if you are that guy who is eating right and exercising and getting your sleep and all that kind of stuff, and yet you're not reaping the benefits in your body from your workouts, it could be that there's a hormone disruption there. You're out of balance, and that's a block in a certain way where you need to get around that before you start getting the benefits. But one thing that I say to a lot of guys is like, I'll just get right to the point. I'll go, look, are you having sex dreams, and are you waking up with an erection? And if the answer to either one of those is no, you've got an issue that you need to take a good hard look there and get something rebalanced. So, there's all kinds of ways, but, I think those are as accurate. How you feel and how you perform physically, mentally, sexually, that's as accurate a gauge as, any of the measurements we can do in the laboratory or the clinic.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of guys would agree that sex drive would probably be at the top of the list. I mean, that's usually the most obvious indicator that you are on a downward trend when you start losing desire at
Right.
all.
Exactly.
Right? For sexual
Sometimes the
behavior.
girlfriends and the wives don't agree with that, right? But but you're 100% right. That sometimes is the first little of the red flags where you're like, huh, am I just tired right now, or is there really something going on?
Absolutely. All right. So then let's quickly then transition to Ignite. All right. I mean, it was an exciting launch. It was awesome. Just, again, the entire direction of it to me was really, I mean, I thought it was wonderful because it falls in alignment with what we at Pure Physique have been talking about for years, which
Right.
is all about getting into hormonal balance. And we could even talk maybe on the tail end about how all of this fits together with things that we discussed in the past, things like GBX Fit, where we were addressing fat loss on a hormonal level, but through the gut, right? And how this ties in. So let's just give like an overview of what Ignite is for men, and then also how is that again different from HRT?
Yeah, so I'm super excited we're able to put this product together for everybody. So the male version of Ignite, what we call Ignite for him, is a combination of 4 ingredients. So the first one your listeners have probably heard of before, which is beetroot powder, right? Beetroot has really good evidence for improving blood flow, and blood flow is important for the muscles to do their thing. It's important for the brain to do its thing. It's important for the sex organs to do their thing, right? So you have to have blood flow to everywhere in order to have good performance. But then the 3 ingredients that really have the hormone balance benefits are rhodiola, which helps with stamina and endurance, and a combination of cordyceps, which is a Chinese mushroom, and tongat ali, which is a root from Malaysia. Those help with testosterone cortisol balance. And so these are herbs that I've used for years and years with some of the elite level athletes that I've worked with, really as a way to it doesn't really accelerate your performance. It's not like you take these pills and run faster or lift more or jump higher. It doesn't work that way. But by maintaining hormone balance, you're able to work out harder, you're able to recover faster, you're able to keep those hormones in balance so that you sort of get more out of your workout. So if you can do one more rep, you're going to get more benefits from that because you had a better stimulus and then you have a better recovery phase. So like there is a real well-validated scientifically performance advantage of all 3 of those in slightly different ways. And we're able to put them together in a combination that I think people are absolutely going to love.
Awesome. And so, I mean, you elaborated on what's in Ignite, but also I think it's just important because since we have talked about HRT, I mean, with this, is there or should there be any concern about, hey, this is something that now I need to stay on this for the rest of my life, because if I don't, then I'm going to see these drops. And so what is that situation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One of the things that's unique about how this works versus testosterone replacement therapy is that you're not taking testosterone, you're not taking androstenedione, you're not taking the actual hormone. You're encouraging your body to make the right amount of it. So like this sometimes comes as bad news to certain athletes that, I'll say these are not testosterone boosters. They will not take you from a normal testosterone and boost you to a high testosterone. They simply don't work that way. They can't work that way. But what they can do, because they're all considered to be adaptogens, they can take you from a low testosterone back up to normal. But likewise, they can take you from a high testosterone back down to normal. So that's a true rebalancing effect. That's what we mean by adaptogens. But in doing so, you're not just having an effect on testosterone, you're having an effect on estrogen and on cortisol and on thyroid hormone. And so that balancing effect is really what you should be going for, again, to help you bounce back from your workouts and avoid overtraining and avoid injury and, inflammation and all that kind of stuff. It's sort of is, how can I say this? It's facilitative, if you will, for high performance, but it doesn't give you the performance right out of the pill. And that's one of the reasons that it's like none of these are considered to be banned substances. They're used by elite level athletes in NCAA and the Olympics and et cetera, because they don't contain any of those things that are going to get in the way of your normal hormone balance. In fact, they're going to work with your body systems to make sure it's in balance.
Awesome. So the last question that I have for you is, how can someone like you or myself, I mean, I know we had this discussion already, to frame it for everybody, how can someone like you or myself who already seem to be okay with respect to hormonal balance really benefit from this? Like, how are you specifically viewing this product and its use for yourself?
Yeah. So for me, in particular, I really view this as something that, so I consider myself to be a time crunched athlete, right? Training for Ironmans and ultra runs and things like that. There's not enough hours in the day, Mike. Yeah, I'm sure you. I mean, this is the whole thing that Pure Physique is about, right? That you don't have to be in the gym for 2 hours to get benefits, right? You can go in there, you can get the right kind of workout, you can be in and out of there. And what hormone balance enables is for you to get more out of that workout. So I'm not, like, the amount of time that I train for my Ironmans, I know plenty of people who look at it and go, really? That's the number of miles you're doing, or the number of hours that you're doing every week? That's not enough. And yet I'm performing at what I consider to be a high level for me, 55-year-old guy, because I'm getting more out of my workouts. And so that means that I'm getting more from the workout. My body's adapting to that workout better. I'm recovering better. I'm sleeping better. I like all of those little, sometimes we call them incremental gains. If someone like you, who's in a really good place, can be 1% better, that's going to be amazing, And if we can do that for everybody, this is a way to, just help people get more out of whatever, what they're already doing.
Well, listen, I appreciate this. Unfortunately, I have to share you with Corey Beth, who's going to be jumping on in a moment to talk with you about the ladies. But I know I could talk with you for hours about this.
Likewise.
A host of other topics. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here, kind of creating some clarity for people, especially for the guys out there who are wondering, what is my next step? What could I be doing, or what should I be doing? Listen, if that's you, please feel free to reach out. That is what I am here for. What Pure Physique is here for is to help put you guys on the proper path and to help you attain that balance so you can function at an optimal level. So with that said, Dr. Shawn, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I am looking forward to doing this again sometime real soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Mike. Bye-bye.